Hey everybody, I'm about to paint some Doom minis, and this is the Cyber Demon, and the client would really like the models to be based on the original, I forget what you call them, but essentially the original video game art colors, and sometimes I can have trouble sort of visualizing what exactly the colors are. Sort of in my mind, I might think it's one thing, you might get a sense that it might be something else. And so, anyway, with this, since I have actual colors to work from, I thought I would use the Reaper Minis Power Palette. And you can go to the Reaper Minis site, go to Paints, and then Power Palette here. And by the way, I'm sorry I'm not doing a screencast, but I'm not set up for it at the moment, and I thought, since I'm only going to be here a second, that this is fine. And I've uploaded one of the little grabs of this model, and I can now go around, and if you see here, this is where I'm essentially analyzing the color with the cursor, and I can click, and then it gives me a list of like best calculated match, and it says leather brown, last 10 bets matches, and this is essentially keeping track of the things that I've been searching. But then I can, that's sort of a highlight there, and then I can go down into the shadows here, and it says muddy soil and brown liner. Go into the reds, and really just get a sense of what this thing is telling me the colors are, so I can make better color choices. Now, obviously, the idea here would be to use the Reaper paints to then do it, which, honestly, if I had a collection of Reaper paints, this would be fantastic. And if you do use their paints, I don't know why you're not using this, to come up with cool ideas. But for my purposes, this is really just sort of to get a better sense of the overall colors, because if they make a recommendation of, for example, tanned shadow, and then I can look at the little color chip, then I can say, oh, well, that's a little bit like whatever, whatever color I have on my shelf that is similar to that, and I can make that selection. So, yeah, so I can just say, okay, this is round, a series of browns that maybe go to a little red, so then I can just sort of make my color choices. The horns, yep, black, brown, olive drab. The reds here, about what I would assume for reds. But it's just for this, particularly for this project, it's a good place to start. With a gun, I'll probably go regular metallics, but if you wanted to experiment with non-metallic metals, I mean, look, there's your selection of grays right there for doing your NMM. But anyway, that was just a quick suggestion, and now I'm gonna go look at my paints and see what makes the most sense to work with from here. And I'll be back in a bit. So when I have something that is going to have a big chunk of metallic in it, I actually like to start with metallic, and I just find it easier to do that because it tends to be a messy process. As you can see from here, all of the kind of overpaint from doing this. And one thing I don't miss about working with metal minis is the fact that smooth surfaces tend to have a texture to them that you don't get with plastic. With plastic, smooth surfaces are super smooth, and so when you want a shiny metal, it's not a problem to get. But with metal, invariably the surface is textured or pitted, not a lot, but just enough to make it difficult to get a nice smooth metallic, and that was the case here. I've been doing my metallics pretty much the same way for years, only refining the fine details. And it's basically, at its core, is a metallic dry brush over black for silvers and a metallic dry brush over dark brown for golds, and sometimes black for golds as well. But black tends to be a really good base for the metallics. And when I did that with this, it was sort of like the last time I did a metal mini, and I just couldn't get it as shiny as I want because the effect of the original artwork is that this is very shiny silver metal. And by the way, just before I go on, this is not done, but I'm at a good point to actually talk about it. So anyway, not being able to get it to where I want it, or where I wanted to have it, I remembered that I had something that I hadn't used in a long, long time, and that is these are actually metal waxes, metallic waxes from a special effects makeup company called Cinema Secrets in Burbank. I used to live in Burbank many years ago, and I picked those up there. The funny thing is, though, that even longer ago, Ral Partha, if you remember Ral Partha, actually marketed these exact same metallics for doing miniatures. And so I remember when I found them, I was really surprised to see them marketed for a different purpose. And it's essentially like a makeup kind of thing. So, you have different colored metallic pastes, and there's the silver, and you just rub it right over the surface and it works kind of like a paint. But the nice thing is that you can kind of polish it a bit too because it's embedded in a wax. And I used to love doing all of my metallics with that back in the 1980s, and people were always surprised at the quality of the metallic effect. So I've had these in my toolbox forever, and I just hadn't pulled them out in a long time, and I was surprised actually to find that they were still good. But in addition to that method, there's also, in most craft stores, you can find a stuff called Rub and Buff. Same idea, comes in a tube, a lot more variety to the colors, and you can apply it with a brush and then polish it out. You can apply it, actually in this case I actually applied this with like a paper towel, so that I could then buff it out as well. And it's okay. So now I'm going to go back and do some washes and stuff to give the metallic more depth. It's pretty surface colored right now, and I need to do a little bit more to it to make it to where I'm happy with it. But I just thought I would share that little tidbit. So yeah, if you were interested in finding this, you should still be able to find it at Cinema Secrets, and I think they have a website. But they are in Burbank, and they do special effects makeup and beauty makeup. It's really sort of a Hollywood kind of place. And that's it for the moment, and I'll be back in a bit. Okay, just a brief update. I've gone over the metal some more. I've got it closer to where I want it, but I think before I'm all said and done, I'll probably end up doing a little bit more to it. But in the meantime, what I've done is... actually, let me tell you what I did do here. I went over this with Drakenhof Nightshade. It's kind of a really nice blue-black shade. And so that gave me a little bit more depth again. Then I went over it with the blue metallic wax. It's the one in the second to the last here, to bring it back up. And then I used the silver metallic to highlight it again. So it's got more color to it, a little bit more depth. And again, I probably will go back and try and get just a little bit more pop to the edge highlights at some point. But for now, I went ahead and I undercoated all of the areas that are going to be red in white. And why did I do that? Well, because I really want my reds to pop. And say what you will about the base colors or foundation colors. You know, they cover fine, but if you really do want your colors, your bright colors to pop, then you really got to put them over white. And so that's what I've done here. And I will go back in and start the red process. I'll probably use Mephiston red base as my starting point. I really like it. As far as the new colors go, that's been one of my favorites. So I'm going to go back and do that, and I'll be back in a bit. So what I decided to do on the flesh was a mix of Ungor flesh and rat skin flesh. The suggestions from the Reaper palette tool were suggesting various tans and flesh tones, and so I figured that the sort of yellow from the Ungor flesh mixed with the sort of orange of the rat skin flesh would give me something that approximated the direction that I wanted to go. And clearly this is just a base tone that you can see here, and then when that was on, I started with a wash of Agrax Earthshade, which is currently drying on the bottom, but I'm about to go in and get the rest of it on there as well. But I just wanted to try to provide, you know, more sort of step-by-step view of this miniature. So I don't normally get this detailed in what I'm doing, and I recognize that, and I've been trying to do better work in progress videos. So hopefully that's doing that. Anyway, I'll be back in a bit. By the way, I apologize for the fan noise in the back, but it's starting to get kind of toasty in here, so I'm just going to have to deal with it. So this is just about dry and ready for highlighting, or really layering, to put color back in the skin. You're probably looking at this and going, oh my god, that looks awful. But this is one of those sort of middle parts of the process where it's going to look pretty nasty. But if all goes well, then it will come back when we start layering the color back in and kind of smoothing it back out again. We're going to keep the recesses pretty dark. In the original artwork, the contrast between the highest highlights and the darkest shadows is pretty stark. So that's what I'm going to be going for here. And I think this is a good start on it. And while I was waiting for that to dry, I went ahead and got started on the mancubus. And he's essentially the same colors, skin tone wise, as the Cyberdemon. And rather than start with the metallic and then brush in the base coat, I used the airbrush, which went a lot faster. And in retrospect now, I think I might have been better off doing that on the Cyberdemon. But these are the things that happen. But also, I think that it's going to be easier to get the metallic in on the arms than it would have been on the leg and in this part of the arm. So perhaps each one needed to be its own thing. So now I'm going to go ahead and get to layering in the color on the Cyberdemon. And I'm going to do that with my original flesh tone, which is the mix of rat skin flesh and Ungor flesh. And I can actually just keep adding more Ungor flesh as I want to build towards the highlight, because it's a pretty bright color. And that's essentially the way the highlights work in the art. So I am going to go do that. And I'll talk to you in a bit. So as you can see, I've spent some time cleaning up the flesh tones. Still really stark. I'm not done. I still need to do some more highlights, but what I did is I started layering it, and then I decided that because the detail is so defined on this that I really went for more of an overbrush, or almost not a dry brush, really more of an overbrush, to really hit the high spots with the bright colored paint. And then I went back with the Agrax Earthshade and started redefining the musculature. And between those two things, it really starts to even out the paint. So instead of being overly splotchy, you get something that looks more like, you know, what you might want to see in your figure. But I wanted to point out, like, look at the mancubus. Looking at him just with the base coat and wash, and how clean he already is, I really wish I'd airbrushed the Cyber Demon, because he would have been so much less work at this point. But it also is going to sort of give them a different appearance, even though they're essentially the same colors. And I'm still going to need to go back in and do highlights and post shading on the mancubus as well, but again, not nearly as much work, I think, to get it smooth and clean like I'd like it to be. So anyway, that's my progress report so far. I'm going to go get some more work done on the Cyber Demon, and I'll come back and talk to you in a bit. Okay, so now I'm a couple of highlight steps in, and as you can see, although these guys started out similarly, they are much different now. And the mancubus is going to end up being highlighted in a similar fashion. The lighting in here is a little harsh, and it's not, at least as far as I can tell looking at the screen here as I shoot this, it's not, well, that's actually not too bad. That's not a bad look at it, especially in the chest area. It's really supposed to pop near the sternum, and it does appear to be doing that. So that's working out pretty well. Alright. Oh, by the way, I didn't mention this earlier. So on all the red bits, again, started with Mephiston Red, and then washed them all with Caroberg. I always have a tendency to add a few syllables to the names of these paints. Caroberg Crimson as my wash color, and it really creates a nice deep red. And then when I pull back out and brighten it up again, I think I'm going to get exactly the effect that I'm looking for. And I think, I'm not sure, I kind of want to jump over to the mancubus and get his highlights going, but since I'm going to have to remix the paint anyway, I think I might jump in on the reds here, because I'm kind of getting excited about them. So I'm going to go do that, and I will talk to you in a bit. So as you can see, I did some work on the reds. You can see a bit of the highlight through the abdomen there. And for the most part I've been using the Wild Rider Red, which is one of the layer colors, but also a little bit of orange when I need to make it have a little bit more pop to it, mostly on some of the hoses and stuff. But I also went in and did the teeth and the eyes. The teeth I actually used the highlight color for the flesh, and then I added a little Griffin sepia to make them a little dirtier. And the eyes are just more the Mephiston red, and then the Carenberg wash, then a dot of orange, and then a dot of yellow to really put this sort of fire in the eyes. And the horns were interesting. When I went back and looked at the art, I realized that they're really supposed to be metallic, but a dark metallic. And so that's a very light, subtle dry brushing of bolt gun metal over black, built up very slowly so that it actually is going to get the metallic, but it ends up looking almost like lead instead of a brighter sort of steel color. I did go back over the metallics with some more of the blue wash, and highlighted some of the rivets, or I should say shaded some of the rivets. That probably makes more sense to what I actually did. And I did the hoof, but that still needs some work. But at this point I'm getting really close to being complete here, and so soon I'll be moving on to the mancubus. But I think that's going to end it for now. I've kind of done a lot more today on this video than I expected to, and so I'll get a little bit more work done on this, and maybe even wrap it up and call it done. And then tomorrow I can pick up on the mancubus and start the marine. Look at the size difference there. Come on, you. I'm going to shoot you with my little shotgun. Yeah, I just dropped my gun on your head and you die. Alright, that's it for now. And I will talk to you tomorrow.